There is a detail in this sculpture that art historians mention in passing, and that I cannot let go of. There is an expression the human being cannot fake. Real pain. The kind that comes from inside out. The kind that distorts the face, tenses the neck, opens the mouth without producing any useful sound. The Greeks carved it in marble more than 2,000 years ago. And the question no one asks is why? Why would someone choose to immortalize that exact moment? Not the victorious hero, not the majestic god. The moment when a man understands he is going to die, and there is nothing he can do. This is the Laocoön, and the story behind it is far more disturbing than the sculpture itself. Laocoön and His Sons has been on display at the Vatican Museums since 1506. 500 years facing the public, 500 years with that open mouth. It was found buried in Rome, in the gardens of a nobleman. When the news reached Michelangelo, who at the time was working on the Sistine Chapel just a few kilometers away, he dropped what he was doing and ran to see it. Ran. Michelangelo. To see a sculpture. He later said it was the greatest achievement in art in all of known history. Not his own, not any contemporaries. This one. But who was Laocoön? Why did the Greeks tell his story? Laocoön was a priest of Troy, a man of power, with access to the gods, with religious authority. And precisely because of that, he could see what others could not. When the Greeks left the wooden horse in front of Troy's gates, all the Trojans wanted to bring it inside. It was a gift, a symbol of the enemy's surrender. Laocoön was the only one who cried out against it. Do not trust the horse. There are Greeks inside. I know it. And he hurled his spear into the wood. A clean blow of warning. He was right. Completely. Inside were the Greek soldiers who that night would burn Troy to the ground. But the gods had decided that Troy must fall, and Laocoön was an obstacle. What happened next is what makes this story unlike any myth you have ever heard. The gods did not kill him quickly. They did not strike him down. They did not erase him. They sent 2 giant sea serpents from the ocean. And the serpents did not go for Laocoön first. They went for his sons. While he watched, while he tried to reach them, while his hands touched the scales and could not pull them away. First the sons, then him. That is exactly what the sculpture shows. That moment, not the death. The precise instant before, when consciousness still remains, when the possibility of hope still exists, and there is none left. Now comes the part art history books usually leave out. The gods who ordered this were not evil in the way we understand today. It was not a punishment born of cruelty. It was something far colder. Athena and Poseidon had decided that Troy would fall. That was the plan. Laocoön, with his warning, threatened the plan. They did not punish him because he was wicked. They destroyed him because he was right at the wrong moment. Think about that for a moment. The gods did not send the serpents because Laocoön was guilty of anything. They destroyed him because being correct, being intelligent, seeing the truth, was inconvenient to the order they had decided upon. And to make the lesson unmistakable, they did it in front of all the people of Troy, in front of everyone. So they would see what happens to the man who tries to change what has already been decided. The Trojans watched the serpents kill Laocoön and his sons, and they brought the horse inside. There is a concept in psychology called learned helplessness. It was first described in 1967 by psychologist Martin Seligman. He subjected dogs to electric shocks they could not escape. Afterward, when they could escape, they did not try. They had learned that effort was pointless. The Laocoön is the oldest visual representation of that concept in existence. A man who knows, who acts, who is right, and who discovers that none of it matters when the power surrounding him has decided otherwise. The sculptors who created this work, Agasander, Athenodoros, and Polydorus of Rhodes, understood that in a way very few artists have ever matched. They did not sculpt a man fighting. They sculpted a man who already knows he has lost and who keeps fighting anyway. That is the difference. Look at the hands. One tries to tear the serpent from his own body. The other reaches out toward his young son. He does not know which one to save first. That is the exact geometry of human suffering when the world collapses. The body torn between saving oneself and saving those you love. And the face, that open mouth. Experts have debated for centuries whether he is screaming or whether the pain has grown so intense that the scream can no longer escape. Winckelmann, the father of modern art history, wrote in 1764 that Laocoön does not scream because a Greek hero contains his pain. That this nobility was the pinnacle of the classical ideal. Winckelmann was wrong. Laocoön does not contain the pain. The pain has completely overflowed him. What you see in that face is not stoicism. It is the exact moment when the human nervous system exceeds its limit and the brain stops processing what is happening. Doctors call it dissociative shock. The Greeks did not have that name, but they carved it perfectly. Remember the detail I mentioned at the very beginning? Look closely at him, the youngest son. Unlike the father and the older son, who struggle, who twist their bodies, who attempt something, the youngest son barely resists. He looks at his father. That is all he does. Look at his father, as if he still believes his father can fix it. The gods sent the serpents knowing exactly what they were doing. They did not kill the man who was right. They killed a child's faith that the world makes sense. That is what this stone has been holding for 2,000 years.